You aren't swiping right. You're not sitting alone in your bedroom, endlessly scrolling through a wall of glowing faces. For hundreds of thousands of years, love just wasn't that private. No candlelit dinners, no dating apps. Ancient romance wasn't a hobby. It was raw, tied directly to a gritty, sweaty, dangerous fight for survival. Back then, attraction was a public broadcast. You couldn't hide behind a perfectly curated profile. The entire tribe was watching. They knew when you were starving. They saw every single scar. They knew your temper, and they knew exactly what you were worth when things went south. So, have you ever thought about it? What dating would actually feel like? If everyone around you already knew everything about you? Let's rewind to a time when you couldn't just sit across a table and ask, "Are you a reliable person?" Honestly, you didn't even have to ask. Picture a brutal day. The sun sets. Everyone comes back empty-handed. You're starving. You weren't listening to promises. You were just watching. You watched how they reacted when someone finally brought back a scrap of meat. Did they divide it up fairly, or did their eyes dart around, looking to hoard the biggest piece? You noticed how they tensed up when a twig snapped in the dark. Did they step up to shield the group, or did their instinct tell them to shrink into the shadows? You saw how the camp's kids reacted to them. Did the toddlers cry? Or did they just casually climb up their legs completely fearless? In that world, character couldn't be faked with a clever bio. It leaked out, little by little. In every glance, in every drop of sweat, every single day. How long do you think you could hide your true colors in a tiny camp with 0 walls? And that is exactly why looks weren't a cheat code. When researchers Sear and Marlowe studied the Hadza people in Tanzania, one of the last hunter-gatherer societies on Earth, they found something wild. Height and muscle mass? They barely mattered when it came to choosing a partner. Because when you've seen the raw, unedited version of someone through thousands of life or death moments, those superficial visual shortcuts, they instantly lose their power. Now, look at us. We forced 2 complete strangers to sit across a table. We've turned romance into a wildly awkward job interview. So what do? Where are you from? We put looks in the driver's seat, and we force personality to play catch-up. Forget the biggest myth about prehistoric romance. Man hunts, woman gathers. They pair up. End of story. The reality? Not quite that neat. The ancient world still had jealousy, rejection, gossip, bad breakups. But there was one massive difference. When you picked someone to share your fire, you weren't just dating a person. You were marrying into a survival network. That one choice dictated where you slept, who shared their food when you struck out, and which camp would actually have your back. In 2011, researchers Hill and Walker uncovered something fascinating. Hunter-gatherer bands weren't just tight-knit family bubbles. They were packed with completely unrelated adults. A partner wasn't just a romantic interest. They were a bridge between entire tribes. Ever broken up with someone just because they didn't vibe with your friends and family? That friction you felt? You weren't just being picky. That's an evolutionary echo. Anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy calls humans cooperative breeders. Human babies are born incredibly fragile. They take forever to grow up. Mom and dad? They were never enough to keep a kid alive. They needed grandmothers, aunts, uncles, reliable allies. So when that initial honeymoon phase wore off, the real survival question kicked in. Is this person going to pull in help from the community? Or are they just going to cause drama? Do they slot into the childcare network? And just how far did our ancestors go to find that perfect fit? DNA data from a 34,000-year-old site in Russia called Sunghir gave us a mind-blowing answer. The people buried together there, they weren't close relatives. Our ancestors didn't just settle for whoever was sitting around their local campfire. They trekked across desolate landscapes. They actively networked and intermingled with complete strangers to keep their lineage going. Even at the dawn of humanity, romance had a map. Here's the wild irony. Ancient dating might have offered less personal freedom, but it was also a lot less lonely. Modern romance hands you more choices than any human generation before us. You can hunt for strangers across a city, a country, or the entire planet. You filter them by age, by their music taste, by height, religion, and a dozen other metrics. That freedom is real, and it's beautiful. But it comes at a steep cost. It forces you to judge complete strangers with zero context. You have to guess their character from a few carefully chosen photos. You have to decode their kindness through text messages. You have to decide if someone is safe before your community even gets a glimpse of their face. Our ancestors had limited options but endless evidence. We have endless options but zero evidence. Which system do you think is easier on the heart? And that is exactly why your body feels so deeply confused by modern dating. Your brain is hardwired for repeated exposure. It needs to see someone over and over again in the mundane daily grind. Not just when they're performing their absolute best selves. It's built to read reputation, the collective memory of how a person actually behaves over time, and it craves embodied trust. That physical moment, your nervous system actually relaxes because it's witnessed enough tiny, consistent actions to know this person is safe. But now, you've been stripped of all those ancient anchors. You sit across from a stranger at a table. You're trying to feel in 90 minutes flat. What took your ancestors weeks or months of shared reality to build? No wonder it feels so forced. No wonder the attraction can feel intense, yet completely anxiety-inducing. And no wonder a single text bubble on a screen is enough to make your chest tight. The ancient survival system is gone. But the ancient biology, it's still right here. Today, you call it chemistry, or you look for red flags. But underneath it all, your primal brain is just asking one thing. Can I trust this person when we're starving and terrified? A dating profile can lie. Texts can be perfectly scripted. But give it time, and behavior is the only thing that doesn't lie. That was true around a campfire. And it's still true through a phone screen. Ancient romance was never about the flash. So at your absolute core, you aren't just swiping right on a glowing face. You're still peering through the smoke of that ancient fire, looking for the person who's actually going to show up when life gets impossibly hard.